One, my name is Moyinoluwa Fesobi, and I'm a software developer. And in this video, I'll be explaining my D app, which I built on Eternity blockchain. So a bit about me. I am a member of Eternity aekiti. I'm also a member of GDG Cloud and aekiti, and I'm a women technical ambassador. The name of my app is AEQuiz here, and AEQuiz is a quiz app built on Eternity's blockchain smart contract. And what it does is that it tests knowledge. And how does this testing help? It helps by providing better organization of knowledge, by helping the brain to organize material in clusters to allow better retrieval. Testing also improves metacognitive monitoring by giving students scores and self-assessments. Other benefits of are that it gives feedbacks to instructors and lets them know what is learned or what is not. Testing also motivates students to study, and it also reduces procrastination. So the problem I observed is that most students prefer not to study. And I try to solve this problem by creating a quiz template where the instructor can create questions and students can also take the quiz in a secured network, which is the blockchain. This project is actually hosted on GitHub, and I'm going to be taking a look at my code right now. So the first thing I'm going to be taking a look at is my smart contract. Okay. So the name of my smart contract is AEQuiz, and what I did was that I created a record of questions which collects questions. It collects the correct answer and the incorrect answers. Then I created a record of score which collects the username and score. I also created my record state which has all the questions which is mapped to a string of the question. I also have the scores which is mapped with a key of an address. That means that the players and the map have a data type of address. Then I initialized my contract with the init function in which the question and scores have empty arrays, and then the admin which has my eternity address. Then I created a check question function which checks the question here. Then I created an admin function. Then I also created several functions which include get question and get scores, which handles that respectively. I also created an add score function which adds scores of users with their username. Then I created an add question function which adds the question. One correct question answer, and then also it has three incorrect answers. This also checks if a question exists before adding a new question. Then I also have a function called delete question. It deletes a question from the question table after checking if the question exists. So that's all with my smart contract. So I also worked with JavaScript. So I'm going to be taking a look at my JavaScript. Well, in my JavaScript folder, I have about 4 different JavaScript files, and this is because I have they help with the several HTML files with the functionality. Because if you take a look at the HTML files, I have about 5 different HTML files, although it's only 4 that's helping with the functionality. So let's take a look at that. Oh, sorry, JavaScript. Okay, so the first one I'm going to be looking at is my end.js file. And here I have several variables that get elements by ID from the end.html file here. Then I created the client variable. Then I also created the constant contract instance that it actually works. It gets the instance of the contract. Then I created a contract address variable which I deployed to testnet. Then I have my contract source variable which contains my contract. I created a load event listener that gets questions. That was the next thing I did. Then I created a block of code that to save score. Yeah, here it is. Then I also created a function that catches errors. So the next file we're going to be looking at is the game.js file. I also have several variables that get elements by IDs from the game.html file here. Then I actually have variables too that are empty. Then I created the client variable and the contract instance, which gets the instance of the contract. Then I created a contract as address variable, which I deployed to testnet. Then I have my contract source variable, which contains my contract. I then created a load event listener that gets the question. Then I also created a block of code that starts the game and also catches errors. Then I created variables for the correct bonus and max question. I also created a block of code to get the new questions. Then I created another block of code for the question increment. So that's all about game.js. Then my question.js file. Okay, so this is my question.js file, and in this file I have several variables that get elements by ID from the question.html file. Then I created the client variable and contract instance, and the contract instance, it gets the instance of the contract. Then I created a contract address variable which I deployed to testnet. Then I have the variable for the contract source, which contains my contract. Then I created a function called question DOM, which lists the questions for deletion. And then I also created a load event listener that gets the question. I also created several variables that list the question, the correct answer, and then the incorrect answers. Then I created a block of code to catch errors, and also created a block of code to delete questions from the question table. So that's all about the question.js file. So the next file I'm going to be looking into is the scoreboard.js file. So this is my scoreboard.js file, and I have several variables that get elements by IDs from the scoreboard.html file. Then I created the client variable, and I created a contract instance that gets the instance of the contract. Also created a contract address variable which I deployed to testnet. Then my contract source variable as my contains my contract. Then I created a load event listener that gets the score with the username and it displays it. So that's all about the JS. Then I developed the UI using CSS. Thank you.